All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Around the Bird Bath. This is episode 10. This is our 2023 Conference USA baseball tournament preview, and it is the final Conference USA conference tournament, CUSA, anything for UTSA athletics before we close the chapter on CUSA, thank goodness, and move to the American Athletic Conference. And who other than to bring on for this episode than the brainchilds themselves, Jared and Adrian. How you guys doing tonight?
Hey, pretty good. Thanks for bringing us on. And it's only fitting that, we did the last ever Conference USA preview for any sport, man. It's been
wow.
It's been a long journey.
Unbelievable, Jared. Yes. What is up, man? I'm excited. I'm pumped up to be here in Houston all ready for the Conference USA tournament. Very, very easy for us Houstonians to get to the games. And I expect every UTSA, Houston-based UTSA Roadrunner to be at every single UTSA game. Yeah, I know. We've got some lunch hour games, some midweek lunch hour games. It's going to be hard to sneak away from the desk. Got to make it happen. Got to make it happen, Captain. Take the laptop to Rice Park with you, to stay to Reckling's Field with you, and get the work done. Send the emails from right there, baby. I know they got Wi-Fi in that place. It's Rice.
Yeah, they got good Wi-Fi on campus.
Let's go, dude. You can set up in the Carbach Ice House. You can go inside and set up shop right there. Do your calls, send your emails, whatever. Be there at all costs.
Yeah, I mean, I want a running total. I want to see if UTSA and the Roadrunner faithful can show up better than Rice. I mean, Rice, the way they're talking on social media, they think they already won the College World Series. So maybe their fans know there's a conference tournament in their backyard. Maybe they don't, but they pulled it out and snuck into the tournament by as narrow a margin as possible. We're going to get into all that. We're going to talk about the tournament. Before we do that, let's recap this. Not done yet. Some people on Twitter think the season ended on, Friday afternoon, but let's recap kind of the regular season up to this point and how UTSA baseball's looked, 38-17, right on the cusp of a program record 40 wins, 21-8 in conference. First time, I don't know. I've heard this said a couple times. I don't know if it's the first time in Conference USA that we're over 20 conference wins or just conference play in general, but 21-8, first time in Conference USA that's happened for UTSA. So, I mean, how have you guys felt watching UTSA baseball this season, and what have some of your guys' takeaways been?
They've been on an absolute tear, man. And up until recently when we've had the wave, but you think about the way that this season started, I completely equate it to when the Spurs lost the championship on Ray Allen's three-pointer, right? And then they came back the next season and there was the redemption tour. There was no denying what they were going to do. That's how UTSA came out after dropping Conference USA championship game last season. They came out this year just they could not be denied, just hitting, pitching, fielding, win after win after win. We were beating all the top programs on our schedule, right? The win over U of H, the win over Baylor, win over Texas State. All these quality wins. And then we go over to Houston and beat the hell out of Rice, I think 2-1 in that first opening series. So we were on a complete tear. Now it seems like we've gotten humbled a little bit getting to the last part of the season. They say you can peak too early, right? I'm hoping that's not the case for this team, but we were definitely striding at the early part of the season. And now, mileage, wear and tear, the game of chess on the guys, all those things started to come into play. And we had to go up against the best team in conference, DBU, and we got really humbled in that series, man. And so, we're kind of starting to come and recover, but we're certainly not striding how we were back in March, back in April. It's hard to say temperature going into Conference USA tournament. I feel good after how we played against All-Tech, though.
Something that I've been thinking a lot too is I'm kind of comparing this season to last season, because I think this season you're seeing not great consistency, but I think better than last year. The team has still dropped a lot of those midweek games that they really should have dominated and really shouldn't have been a contest whatsoever. But they're really taking care of business in conference play and, across series in general. I think they only lost the DBU series, was the only series they lost all regular season, which is phenomenal. Mm-hmm. So it's really hard to complain. But unfortunately, the low strength of schedule and losing those midweek games caused the RPI to drop pretty low, right? So UTSA is they're playing for the bid right now. I don't think that they can kind of just go into conference tournament and just have fun and see what happens, because like I don't think their RPI right now is in a position where they would get an at-large bid with any degree of certainty. But to compare to last year, they were beating all these ranked teams, and so they were getting like kind of quite a bit of spotlight from that, and I think it kind of raised some eyebrows a little bit, both nationally and within the local fan base as well. So I've kind of been thinking, like, what season has been more fun or more rewarding just as a fan, like last year getting all these ranked wins, or this year where, they're just kind of taking care of business, week in and week out. And I haven't really decided on an answer. I was curious what you guys think, like what regular season was more fun to just follow this year, last year.
I love that dynamic that you posed there, Jared. And last year it really felt like we turned the corner as a baseball program. And like we had kind of been seeing a little bit of improvement here and there, but it really felt like we turned all the way around. This was no longer a losing program. It was a winning program. And they made that very, very clear. And this year, you still see us ascending that staircase, right? Step by step. We're getting better. We're getting better. A lot of like what we saw with the football program after Jeff Traylor's takeover, season by season, you see the tangible improvements on the field. Same thing with here on the diamond. I think we've seen the tangible improvements. You're right. The midweek games have been an absolute disaster, but this team has been way more consistent. This team last year, I don't think I had expectations. Even after getting those big ranked wins, I didn't necessarily have an expectation going into the next week. I was just really happy that we got that win over the ranked team that we weren't supposed to get. Right. But this year, I've had expectations for this team, and they've lived up to them by all means, minus the Tuesday games. But on a conference play standpoint, going up against the big Power 5 schools that we did, I expected us to play really well and win in some of those games. We won all of them, and we only lost one conference series. I think this season's been more rewarding to me because I had expectations. They lived up to them. Last season was more exciting. It was fun. It was great to see it. But now it's like we're here now, and now we're playing with the big boys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, when you get to, I'll say this from a coverage standpoint, writing the articles and updating people on Twitter and doing the in-game live tweets, when you get to throw out stats like winning another series, haven't lost on Sunday in 5 weeks, haven't lost a series yet, haven't lost 2 games in a row yet. I mean, like, because there's an aspect of you can only play who you can play on the schedule, and we know how challenging it is to get teams to come down to the birdbath. But then you also look at some of those teams they did schedule: Houston, Utah, Texas State, A&M, and those teams kind of like early on crapped the bed mid-season. So it's like, okay, it's not quite the opportunity we thought it was going to be. But then last year you saw like a lot of those ranked wins, and ranked wins on a Tuesday. A ranked win is a ranked win, but take a team like Charlotte. I mean, Charlotte is, yes, they're the 3 seed in the tournament. We'll talk about them, but their record, I think they're right at 500, maybe a game above 500 in both conference play and regular season. But they've got 3 wins against top 10 teams. And I think they all came on Tuesdays. So it's like, and that to me, and UTSA is going to see them either. UTSA has the opportunity to see them very early in the tournament. Mm-hmm. And that's a dangerous team to me, because that shows in one game, like what the conference tournament is. It's one game at a time. It's not these 2 out of 3, 3 out of 4 like MLB is. That's a dangerous team. So yeah, not as much, but also to this year, like I think we put people on notice. And so, I mean, they had 5 weeks in national polls. 4 of those were in kind of the mecca, if you will, of national polls, D1 baseball, which is what NCAA recognizes. So, RPI, it's not really there because of just there wasn't much room for error with the schedule and how it turned out. But being ranked for the first time in program history, being on the cusp of a program record wins, achieving a conference record wins. I mean, yeah, I think this season, all the comebacks, like, yep. I mean, I can't think how many times it was the top of the ninth, bottom of the ninth. I'm like thinking my post-game tweet, and all of a sudden Josh Clean, Antonio Valdez launches one to the left center, and it's like, okay, they did it again, you know?
Yeah, I failed to mention that earlier because I wanted to talk about kind of their style of play this year as well. And I think like there's two main things that have stood out to me. Like, first of all, the resiliency. We talk about it all the time on the podcast. This team they never say die. They always find a way to fight back. You know, even that DBU series where they got swept, you know, they still fought back. And I think 2, if not 3 of those games to kind of give themselves a shot in the late innings, right? But outside the resiliency, I think the biggest takeaway from this season for me was like the development of the pitching staff was way better than I've seen in a really long time at UTSA. You know, I had a fear in the back of my head that Luke was going to regress a little bit this year because he was so good last year. He probably is better. I don't have the stats pulled up to compare, but he's just been such a steady ace for UTSA on Fridays this year. It was just incredible. But you know, seeing Simon Miller have the year that he's had, and you just a lot of guys step up and throw quality innings, right? There's a lot more depth in the bullpen, and you know, more guys that you don't have like a kind of a twitch, you know, when you see them walk out on the mound, you know, and you feel confident with the ball in their hand.
Yeah, the discipline of the team. When you talk about resiliency, and I think it comes down to discipline, and I think that's something that Hallmark's been so good about preaching, is like each one of those guys just staying disciplined in what they do. I think he was talking about, you know, somebody staying back on their swings, and he just told her, just give me 3 good swings, make sure you sit back and be disciplined every single time that you do it. But we're seeing that, and I think that's how the resiliency's played out. I mean, yeah, that DBU series, man, it was like a heavyweight match. Every single one of those games was fantastic, and UTSA punched with all their might. DBU was just a little bit stronger than we were, but absolute heavyweight matches. We showed up in everything. And I think another thing that really shows where this program is now is the respect and the recognition that we got from other programs. And you heard Power 5 head coaches and other head coaches of respected baseball programs talk about UTSA's baseball team with some reverence, pre-game, post-game interviews. And that really stuck out to me. We started to get the acknowledgement of your peers.
Yeah, you definitely got the sense that other teams had that game circled on the calendar as well.
Yes,
and no team could pull it off other than DBU. And man, that was an impressive squad, man. I'm kind of hoping Rice does us a favor and knocks them off.
I'd rather see Rice again.
I guess they got to lose 2 before they get to us. But yeah, man, that's a scary squad right there. They were just, from all the games I watched this year, they were a step above pretty much anyone. They're impressive.
Give me Rice for the 7th time rather than DBU for the 4th. I think every UTSA fan would agree with it, dude. Yeah.
No doubt, man. No doubt.
Listen,
I want to hear UTSA chants in Reckling Park on Sunday.
Oh, baby.
For a Rice like home game, you know.
and we'll even spot Rice 5 innings. We'll say, hey, we'll give you 5 innings and a 4-0 lead. And we'll just start in the 6th inning, and we'll play 4 innings of baseball and see who comes out on top.
Oh, baby.
No, but I think, like, you know, so last year you kind of saw like we already talked about so much with the ranked wins. When we did the preview podcast back in February, one of the things I talked about was I want to see less bad losses this year. You know, I know a lot of people are going to look at DBU like, oh, we got smashed. Like, we still had in every one of those games in the last inning, the tying run was at the plate. And we know what can happen with one swing of the bat in baseball. So I think this year, like what might help, I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but why I think that they could possibly get to the championship game on Sunday. And even if they lose to whoever, let me say, if they lose to somebody in the championship game other than DBU, I don't think they can lose and still get in, because then you're asking the committee to put 3 total Conference USA teams in, and I don't think they're going to do that.
DBU is guaranteed in already, I think.
DBU could not show up. I mean, they're going to play hard because they're in host contention, in host talks, so they're going to probably show up. They're not going to just mail it in. But why I think that UTSA could get to the championship game against DBU and lose and still get in is because of that human aspect that the committee would never admit to, but you have to know it's there. And because you look at last year, they had the season they did last year and they didn't get in. So, you know, there's a human element there. You know, so breaking down the RPI one more time, right now they're in the mid-low 60s because of all the other teams in the conference below them. There's not going to be much room outside of beating DBU to make a big jump up. Obviously, if they beat DBU, then they'd be in. And how that works out is because 30 of the 64 spots go to the conference champs. Not every single one of those conference championship teams is in the top 64. You got like Sam Houston, they're in like 90 or 100. So what that means is there's more than 34 teams in the top 64 looking for 34 spots. And that's why, because some people were like probably thinking like, hey, there's 64 teams, we're at 62. Like, why are we not in? Well, of those 34 available spots, if you're looking at an at-large spot, you've got teams with an RPI of 25 that didn't win their conference, teams with RPI of 42 that didn't win their conference. And, you know, the committee call it just the bad luck of the mid-majors. They like the sexy programs like the SEC, the ACC, Pac-12, and they're going to give the benefit of the doubt to a 500 SEC school over a 690, 700 Conference USA school. It is what it is. And
unfortunately, Ole Miss winning that whole Omaha last year kind of gave them more ammunition to continue doing that because they got in, I think, as the last seed, coming in with like a 500 SEC record and then won the whole thing, right? So it's really unfortunate for the small guys, but I do wonder, like, if the selection committee is like, okay, like we snubbed UTSA maybe, and you know they were right on the bubble last year, they're on the bubble again. Like we can't let these guys down twice. You know,
I think the only way it happens is if you lose to DBU, and the only way that UTSA makes the tournament without winning the conference tournament is to lose to DBU, and nobody.
If they lose to Charlotte or
you know, and even with the loss to DBU, it's still kind of a stretch, in my opinion. I think it's still kind of a stretch for UTSA.
100%.
It's going to depend how the rest of the conference tournaments shake out across the rest of college baseball, I think. Yeah.
And I haven't decided yet, like, because you know we think of this in sports, and this is like we have the luxury and the opportunity as pundits, if you call it, if you can even give us that title, of being able to look at it this way. But like thinking about like what happens if they don't get in, I don't even know like what my initial, like my hot take, my raw take would be. Because I think so much of it depends on, you know, because we know how, and this is again trying to be objective. You know, we all love UTSA. We want to see UTSA athletics succeed, but when you put yourself in a position of being willing to put out content, you have to be objective. And if they just go and just crap the bed and go 1-2 or 2-2, it's like, I mean, they were really deserving. They kind of dropped it when it counts, and that's just part of sports and part of the raw deal. And that's what makes sports like so wonderful. But at the same time, like they have to show that they're deserving of it for sure.
I mean, look, unfortunately, the reality of it is without winning a conference tournament or I guess I just say getting an at-large bid, buddy, it feels like the last two seasons, unfortunately, will be like erased from casual UTSA.
I've been thinking about that a lot.
Memory, it will go away. The run will be forgotten. UTSA baseball will, like, unless they have the same success their very first year in the AAC, which would be very hard to replicate. You know, like it's hard, man. And so the momentum is snowballing for us at the right time. But it's getting to that fork in the road, buddy. And it could continue to snowball into a bigger snowball if we go down the right path, or we just go off a cliff and that snowball's gone. And it's gone forever, right? And
I think like if there's no conference tournament win, there's no at-large bid, I think this era of UTSA baseball could evaporate pretty quickly. I think we're on thin ice, you know what I'm saying? Because, you know, you look at the rosters, a lot of seniors that are leaving, and chance guys leaving the portal. It's happened to UTSA baseball the past couple of years, and the facilities is still an issue with no.
We need that promise on the facilities
to address. Man. I mean, it's a house of cards right now, and you know if they win, if they get in, you can like maybe spray some hairspray on that house of cards. It's going to stick together for a little bit.
Yes.
So it's I don't know, man. It's a delicate situation for me.
Finicky right now is maybe the most important single week of baseball in UTSA history.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Well, and I didn't realize, and this is the last thing we'll say before we get into the tournament. I didn't realize how many. I was hoping there was more seniors that had like the COVID eligibility. And when I watched that video, like, because the UTSA baseball, they posted the senior video on their Instagram page. It's like a 7-8 clip. I was like, man, that's a lot of names. I was hoping I wasn't going to have to be like, I was hoping some of these guys were coming back. Like, I mean, you look at the position players, like 7 of the 9 position players, I think, or 6 of the 9 position players are just gone, like done, like eligibility used up. Pitching staff. I mean, Simon is probably going to get drafted. I don't want to jinx him, but the year he's had, like, go get paid, go get your, go get your bag. And then, like the thing about, like, just from a coaching standpoint, like, we can be honest about this. Like, we know how great Coach Hallmark is. We know the reasons why he likes San Antonio and what he likes about it. But as a coach that is as successful as he is and as good of a coach as he is, if he looks at his outlook of the program he's working with, and if he sees that every single year he has to make the conference tournament championship, and even a couple injuries could derail that, and then they're left out, that's a lot of stress on a coach, like with everything they've got to do in terms of recruiting and the portal and these mid-major things that we're seeing with football, and now it's trickling over to baseball. Like, that's a lot for a coach to be like, okay, every single year I've got to win 40 games. Every single year I've got to make the championship game just to be a consideration. Like, ooh, that's pretty stressful.
Right. Because I think if you look at the season, and it's easy to say that this team has played better than last year, but what do you tangibly have to show for it if you don't get into a regional? It's like, man, like, this is how thin the margin of error is. Like, it's really taxing. It's really draining. Right. But on the topic of seniors coming back, I think if you're a baseball player and you have a COVID year, I don't know if I would take it, because you're paying your own way for the most part. They're not on full scholarships like that, how they are in football. I think on football, it's a no-brainer, right? If you can take that extra year and get you, a graduate degree or whatever, that's easy. You get a stipend, cost of attendance and all that stuff. And it's just not the same for baseball. So I think it's a much harder decision to make, on the baseball side to take that super senior year, even if you have it.
Yeah. And that's why here's a plug. You got to help our student athletes. Runners Rising. We did an episode with Eddie Benningfield and Ray Redding. We're trying to do a lot of things. They're trying to do a lot of things through Runners Rising to help baseball players specific, help non-football players specific, and keep these guys home. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't want to like make any announcements, out of pocket, but seen a pretty big uptick in baseball allocated donations to Runners Rising lately. So definitely a pretty good pot of money to work with. Right. So, definitely pitch in, help out. And I think it goes a lot longer in baseball, or a little bit of money goes a lot further in baseball than it does for football. You know what I mean? So definitely continue to pitch in if you already have, and if you haven't already. So like we said, it's a delicate time for UTSA baseball.
Yeah.
We'll make that money stretch for sure.
And baseball is such a unique sport because it's such a more condensed roster. I mean, I think this season it's like a 36 or 37 man roster.
Yeah.
Probably 20 to 25 of those guys are actually playing like a consistent amount. And so much of it is relationship. Like you see Coach Belger and the guys that he's brought with him, Coach Aguayo, the guys that he's brought with him. If they go off and do something else, like do those guys that still have eligibility, do they go with them? Like that's not the point of this episode, but just a lot to think about. And, we'll see what happens. So,
yep.
All right. So let's get into the tournament. Conference USA tournament. It starts on Wednesday. It's in Houston at Reckling Park. It's a double elimination tournament up until the championship, which the championship game, regardless of if you've lost or not, it's a single elimination game. That would be Sunday. That's going to be on the CBS Sports Network. Teams stay on their side of the bracket. So like the top bracket, you've got the 3, 6, 2, 7. That's Charlotte, La Tech, UTSA, and Middle. Bottom, you've got 1, 8, 4, 5, DBU, Rice, Western Kentucky, Florida Atlantic. And so the teams on the top and bottom wouldn't see each other until the championship, which has its benefits because obviously DBU's on the opposite side. Western Kentucky, who going into the DBU series had won like 15 of their last 20 games. Rice, if they can figure out their bullpen. So like UTSA, from a team standpoint, they have kind of the better bracket, but then at the same time, there's dangerous teams on their side as well. And so, we'll see. But how are you guys like looking at the bracket and who they could maybe play and who they maybe play in after they've might have already lost one? How are you guys feeling about the side of the bracket that they're on?
I'm really glad they're avoiding Western Kentucky. That's a team that's really hot right now. And I'm a big believer in baseball when it comes to like any postseason play. You're only as good as like you've been the last month. I think it's really rare to see teams that peaked, in April, suddenly like have a down period and then flip the switch and then just dominate come conference play. I mean, it does happen. And I hope that's going to happen for UTSA as well. Because they've been kind of middling recently, but WQ is super hot right now. And they didn't strike me as a very talented team when UTSA played them, but they're firing on all cylinders right now. And I was just really worried that UTSA would get a bad draw and face them, for first game, second game or whatever. So I'm glad that we'll dodge that bullet. But Western Kentucky comes out of that side of the bracket, then man, they're on an insane run. So it's like careful what you wish for.
Yeah,
you're right about that. Western Kentucky, I think, is the dark horse in this whole tournament, just based off the momentum they have. But I love us being in the bracket that we're in. I'm really not too worried. I know La Tech got a game on us. I know Charlotte's a good team, but I like our chances against all three of those, against Middle Tennessee, LA Tech, Charlotte, and I'll take that bet every time. So I really, really like the bracket that we're in. I like our chances to go in there, take care of business Wednesday against Middle Tennessee, take care of business Thursday against the winner of La Tech Charlotte, Friday off. When we get to the winner's bracket on Saturday, take care of business.
Yeah, I mean, to paraphrase something that Chase King said on our last Where Are They Now, where we kind of had a Conference USA memory lane with Chase King, Jonathan Tapia, and Ryan Flores. Essentially, he said, whatever you do, do not drop game 2. Because if you win game 2, you get a day off. You don't play again until Saturday. When you do play on Saturday, you're playing a team that has already lost once. So you're in the driver's seat in that if you drop one, it's not the end of the world. It's not elimination. You're more fresh because you played. Because if you basically going into the championship game, if you lose before that third game, it essentially adds like 2 games you have to play. And I think something we've seen with UTSA this season is the middle to later part of the season, they've really struggled to find a consistent number 2. I don't know if some of that is by design, if they wanted to roll the dice and be like, hey, like we've got a lot of depth in pitching. We're kind of a pitching by committee team that third game anyway. Let's move some things around. Let's see how guys do when they get that initial start. Let's see how guys do when we bring them in the third or fourth inning and starting the game. How do they prepare? How do they set themselves up? And so you don't want to like use too many of those pitchers too soon, I guess. And you want to be careful with how you move through them. And, you need someone to step up. But I think for UTSA, the less games they play, the better, because it's going to require more of that strategicness with the pitching staff and moving guys around and trying not to burn guys. And they could get themselves into a precarious situation if Simon Miller is not available in a winner take all type game.
One thing, I'd probably even say the main thing that I've taken from all of your Where Are They Now around the Birdbath episodes, every time one of these baseball program alumni guys are talking, there's one point that all of them seem to echo across the board, and it's baseball. Some nights it's not your night. Some nights it is your night. Some nights it's just not going to be there. Some nights it is going to be there, right? They all kind of say like something along those lines. And Jared, you're just talking about, you are in the tournament who you were the last month of baseball. So, I mean, we got to talk about the momentum thing, right? How big of a deal is it UTSA dropping 4 games in a row, the biggest losing streak of the season, going down 0-3 to DBU in a really, really close, like heart-wrenching doubleheader fashion, and then losing to Abilene Christian on a freaking Tuesday night. And then, you dropped last game of the season to La Tech. Like, what is... we didn't even talk about the routing that Sam Houston gave us on another Tuesday at the beginning of the month. But what is like the real factor? What's the weight that momentum is going to have on UTSA? Does it matter?
I'm pretty worried, and I'm not very optimistic about this week. And the momentum is one thing, like dropping those games, like it's not a good look. But I just think like the team is kind of gassed a little bit. I think it all started when you had Sardashny, Odom, and someone else all go down with injury around the same time. Who was that third guy, Dan?
Isaiah Walker.
Isaiah Walker.
Yeah.
So I don't know, just like the shortening of the bench or what, but it kind of seemed to me like that was like where you started to see some fatigue come in. And I've noticed it with Simon Miller. I mean, he's thrown so many innings this year. Like, I don't know if he's like lost a little bit on the fastball or whatever, but he's giving up more hits and hard hit balls, I think, than we've seen all year long. And I think it's the same for Malone as well. You see his stats kind of trending in the wrong direction. So I think the team is just spent. And I hope that coming into this week, they're kind of going to be re-energized and feel like it's a new season. And, they're going to hit the ground running, come game one. But I definitely see some exhaustion from the team, and I hope they can power through. But I don't have like a really like warm feeling in my gut heading into this week, unfortunately.
Sure.
I've been wrong before. I hope I'm very wrong on this, but my pessimism is coming out for sure.
I think the exhaustion does have a lot to do with those woes that we saw throughout May and this last month of regular season, right? And that's something that another thing that you pick up talking to the baseball guys, right, is you've really got to be careful managing those innings, and you got to pull guys and you pull them, and you don't want them to pitch those extra 2 innings that a guy throws in April or in March. Man. Makes that much of a difference in May whenever it culminates, right? Like, week over week over week.
I want to say Simon just had like an 85 pitch game against ACU or La Tech, one of the two. Yeah, and I was just like, oh man, I feel like we're going to regret this.
It's just out of control. Yeah, it's just out of control. And we saw some chirps about that. And so, yeah, that's the big management. And I guess that brings us to like the biggest subject of what people are most nervous about when it comes to UTSA. Look, the bat's been on all season. You ain't got to worry about the bats, dude, because the bats are there. The bats are going to keep being there. The bats almost stole one of those games against DBU whenever we were getting routed. And so the pitching is the big question mark.
Yeah. So let me drop some stats on you guys and some little nuggets. And as I'm talking about these things, know that the line in the sand, if you will, is that Middle Tennessee series when UTSA played Middle Tennessee, because that's who they're playing on Wednesday. When they played them the regular season, they won all 3 games. They swept them. They outscored them 30-15. It was at home. That was that weekend is where Shane Sardashny got hurt. That weekend is where Isaiah Walker got hurt. I don't know when Ty Odom got hurt, but I know that Coach Hallmark was on the record saying that he played the Texas State game hurt, which was that following Tuesday. So if we look at that Middle Tennessee, which was about a month ago, and so this fits Jared's kind of approach and my approach for looking at baseball, because you can't with Conference USA, you can't just look at like the last weekend, because if DBU played FIU, it's like, okay, so DBU hasn't lost in 2 weeks. It's like, well, they played FIU and UAB. That's not who they played, but like there's enough teams in the conference that are bad enough to where you need a bigger I guess footprint to look at to more accurately assess it. But UTSA,
also, to your point, Dan, a lot of teams already had their seed for the tournament locked in before this past weekend. Yep. So it would probably be pretty tempting to rest some guys if you're in that position.
No, for sure. Yeah. So winning streaks. UTSA this year has had 2 3-game winning streaks. Essentially, they swept a team and then dropped a Tuesday game. They've had 3 winning streaks that are more than 3 games. They had a 5-game at the start of the season. They had a 10-game. They had a 4-game. Since that weekend against Middle Tennessee State, they haven't had more than a 3-game winning streak, and that was the Rice series where they swept them, but all 3 games, it was either tied or they were losing going into like the 6th inning. They've had 1 losing streak of 4 games, and that was against, of course, DBU and ACU before they broke it against. So they haven't had any winning streaks other than 1 sweep outside of since the Middle Tennessee weekend. Since the Middle Tennessee weekend, I think they're 10-9 against teams. So maybe like they're like 1 game above 500 the last like 19 games since that weekend where those guys got injured. And in several of those games, the pitching staff gave up 9 or more runs, like probably more than half of those games. I mean, even in games that they won, you know, they won the series opener against La Tech. It was 18-16. Like, you know, so the pitching staff has given up a lot of runs. And I think it's kind of the trickle down with those guys getting hurt is what it does is it takes your kind of platoon guys in the outfield and the guys that you're saving for that one matchup against the lefty or the righty, or you're putting in the field after a guy that pinch hits and doesn't play the field very well. All of a sudden those guys are now starting. So now your bench guys that you want to chest move with, they're already starting. So the first inning, you're already starting to wheel and deal. And that's why like this weekend we saw Coach Hallmark, he had pitchers listed in the lineup to kind of save an at bat and kind of see when that first batter was coming up for like Ryan Ward or Daniel Garza. Obviously they're not going to take the at bat, but he can kind of see, okay, who do I want to use from the bench to throw in here? So, you know, that's why it limits them, because it forces them to tap into those kind of chess move piece guys like a lot sooner in the game. And we've seen like through just the overall record, the lack of winning streaks, you know, up until the DBU series, they still hadn't lost more than 2 games in a row, but it was like win, lose, win, win, lose, win, lose, win, win.
Right.
Kind of patchy, you know?
Yeah. Even if you just look at the month of May, we went 5-6. And the lowest opponent run output in a loss was 7. So yeah, guys are getting their hits on us. They're getting around the bases on us.
Yeah,
and so it's the most suspect thing.
As far as the bench part goes, I mean, it's way different than MLB, right? Like in MLB, you have a couple guys get injured, and you pull some guys up from AAA, or you grab a guy off the waiver wire, and that guy has probably been playing baseball consistently like all season long, or they're a veteran, right? When it happens in college baseball, you're bringing in some 18-year-old kid that has never seen pitchers of this caliber in a live action game before, and it puts a lot of pressure on them, you know? So yeah, I think it's tough, and it really limits the strategic aspect of the game as well, because you don't have like these guys, maybe they're only hitting 250 on the year, but you know they had this great matchup against this particular pitcher, so you pick them up to bring them in that situation. So yeah, I think the injuries have really limited like kind of that micro aspect of the game for Hallmark.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, and I think it's hard because even today, I mean, he was talking about it in the interviews, and he said, I mean, Dash is gonna, if he is healthy enough to help us, he's gonna play. So he's not saying like, yeah, he's 95, 98%. We just got to work a couple more things out, give him a couple more ice baths. He's kind of admitting that he's not going to be 100%. Right. It's just the type of injury, you know. Jerry Briggs put it in his blog today. It's some type of it's a tendon tear in his hamstring back of the knee, that left knee. And why that's tough, you know. Fans are probably tired of hearing how I'm a Minnesota Twins fan. You know, Byron Buxton, the guy can play baseball, but for the last few years, he has had to be very controlled and very limited in what he can do because he has knee problems. And, you know, Dash plays center field, and we've seen kind of that range that he offers. Unfortunately, baseball or college baseball rather, you don't get the defense run saves metrics. You don't get the WAR metrics to see how big of a difference he's doing. But you can look at those games 2 months ago and how he tracks down a ball in center field and just how other guys aren't able to be that quick. And you can see the difference he makes in center field when he's 100%. And so, yeah, it's going to be tough sledding. No doubt about it. We'll see what he can do. And, he said in that article that he's hoping to be ready on Wednesday. But that's the other thing that's hard about a knee. You take one wrong step and that flares up again and you're in trouble,
Yeah. Hearing the severity of his injury, I cannot believe he hit a home run last game. That's crazy.
That's insane that he's even playing on it. I mean, that's nuts. Yeah. We talk about the momentum. We talk about the injuries. We talk about the exhaustion. I think it all could be summarized really, really beautiful, or it was summarized very, very beautifully, I should say, by Coach Hallmark. Whenever you posed the question to him, Dan, talking about the success that they've had with the chess moves, rotating guys around and the bench players, how much does that play into getting ready for a conference tournament run as far as the chess moves go? And Coach Hallmark said, I mean, I don't know if it helps us or not, but I'll tell you what helps us is a healthy Shane Sardashny.
Yeah.
And it was and it was like a really, really simply put, like at the end of the day, all the momentum stuff and the injuries and the exhaustion and the chess moves, none of it matters, right? It all comes down to how are we feeling on the baseball field that day? Are our guys healthy? Are our guys ready to go 9 innings plus? That is crazy. We've got a lot of wear and tear. And I think really, we talk about the resilience of the program, the discipline of the program. Like that is going to have to be on its full display for us to go and have a run. We're gonna have to be resilient through the exhaustion and the injuries after a full season slate. We're gonna have to be resilient through this up and down wave that we had through May and shaking that off of us and starting over a new season. We're gonna have to be really, really disciplined and making sure we do all the little things right in each and every single game this week.
It's really hard for me to imagine a scenario where UTSA wins a conference tournament with like a 3-2 win, a 2-1 win, and like a 4-2 win. You know what I'm saying? Like it's at least one of those games is gonna be a barn burner for
There's gonna be drama all over this Conference USA tournament, just the way that that these games have played out sort of all across the conference, right? I mean, there's been a lot of back and forth, a lot of high scoring output. It's going to be a really juicy tournament, Great baseball.
Yeah. So Dan, we mentioned Western Kentucky earlier that they're really hot right now, and they're kind of the team that you don't want to face. But is there any other team in the tournament that has been looking pretty good lately that you think could pose some serious danger as a lower level seed?
Yeah, and that's the other thing I was going to get into, and then I allowed myself to get sidetracked. But I was looking at it today actually, and I used kind of the last 4 weeks, and I just looked at conference games because I didn't want to factor in Tuesdays, and a lot of teams have had Tuesday games canceled recently because of weather. But I basically put it into 3 different categories. I said who is hot, who's undecided, and who's not. And to fall into one of those, to be who's hot, you had to be at least more than 3 games above 500 the last 12 games, and then who's not, obviously below. So right now, DBU the last 12 games is 10-2. FAU the last 12 games is 9-3. Western Kentucky the last 12 games is 9-3. Coincidentally enough, all 3 of those teams are on the same side of the bracket.
Wow.
Who is undecided? UTSA the last 12 games is 7-5. Several of those games have been very close. I think it was UAB where I was like, dang, we're going to drop a series to UAB. This sucks. Antonio Valdez happened. Where would we be without that guy? But La Tech, 6-6. So those are your 2 teams that are kind of like right at 500 the last 12 games, right above it on the same side of the bracket. And then who is not? Our lovely host Rice Owls. They are 2-10 the last 12 games. Middle Tennessee State, they are 4-8 the last 12 games, and Charlotte is 5-7. So that's tough because you're probably hearing that as like, oh great, like the teams on our bracket have had terrible, terrible games. La Tech and Charlotte are very dangerous teams. I'm glad that they're playing each other the very first game because one of them is guaranteed to get a loss right away. But I don't feel great about facing either of them in game 2 because Charlotte has some guys that can absolutely hit the ball, and they've got a better pitching staff than us. But then La Tech, it's like, okay, so like maybe they're not the best team. They've had a down year, but we just played them 3 times in a row. Like playing the same team 4 times in 7 days, like that doesn't excite me and that worries me. My dark horse pick and my qualifications for dark horse pick was somebody 5 seed or below. I'm going with okay. This is what's tough about my dark horse pick, because one of these teams would mean that UTSA does not win because they're on our side of the bracket. I've got to be objective here. I don't think FAU comes out of their bracket because I don't think DBU loses 2 games before the championship game. And I don't think FAU I don't think they beat DBU twice. So they've got a really tough road. La Tech, they've got the more favorable road. So like as an objective, like I don't want to be crucified by the Roadrunner faithful. As an objective, just like how the bracket lines up and how everything matches up, I think La Tech would be your dark horse to make a championship run.
Fair. It's very fair. And a team that can certainly give us problems. I'm hoping that Charlotte and La Tech, you talk about them getting a loss automatically after that first game. Hopefully they beat the hell out of each other too.
Yeah, hopefully
really
they go 15 innings.
Exhaust each other, running through their entire bullpen. I mean, really beating the hell out of each other. And at the same time, UTSA able to take care of business, handily against Middle Tennessee, get us out of there, keep guys rested, take care of business the next day against the winner of Charlotte La Tech, and get that Friday off, man.
I'm going to call in sick to work at 9 a.m. and just work the refs at that Charlotte La Tech game and try to keep an even score all afternoon. And then it'll push UTSA into the afternoon. More people can show up and watch. I mean,
I'll tell you what, refs are getting worked this week. Big time. Big time. Man. I just hope I don't get kicked out on Wednesday. They're like, you can't come back the rest of the tournament.
You're banned for the whole tournament.
You don't make that happen. Yeah. But there's gonna be some heckling at Reckling.
Yeah. Let's get Keegan McCain down there. This is not tennis. Like we need the bad birds out there.
I need the bad birds out there, dude.
Oh man.
We need
the baseball tournament in Biloxi was like the bad birds like rise to fame. Like they were on the TV and all that. Yeah.
Yeah.
If they made it to Biloxi, they should make it to Houston, no problem.
Yeah, it's the perfect blend of like, because you don't want to be like you don't want to be the heckler that's like wrong, right? Like you don't want the umpire to make a good call. It's like, what in the world? It's like, well, I mean, okay, technically that was the right call, and like he wasn't wrong. Like it's the perfect blend of like you're heckling, but people also aren't taking you super serious, and you have like the room to kind of whip out some really good kind of banter and some good takes,
The fine science of heckling etiquette with Dan, baby. That's the off-season topic.
Off-season content right there.
Dude, how to work the umps from Dan Erdahl. How does DBU travel on their baseball contingent? Is there going to be like a big DBU fan base out there? I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, so I'm waiting on one more. I'm going to close out the show with a little nugget that I think I'm hoping is going to put some good vibes out for the baseball gods. But I mean, they had a good crowd at UTSA. I think what's hard with that weekend in particular is the rain was creating so many issues. Like I've got a friend of mine from a while back, and he actually works for the school, and he does something like in conjunction with the director of baseball operations, like work side by side. And I was talking to him because he's like, yeah, we're running around in case we have to host, and like it's been crazy. And I mean, what he does is like kind of everything is associated with hosting. So right now he's running around like a chicken with his head cut off. But they're definitely, I mean, they travel well. I think it's Houston. It's what, 3.5 hours from Dallas.
Yep, roughly 4 hours. Yep.
So I'd have to imagine. Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously, like some of your farther schools, I don't know how well, but
I went to the FIU Rice game on Thursday because I live down the street. My wife works at Rice now, and there was one FIU fan there. So you never know.
Wow.
You never know.
Yeah. Let's go. Way to represent. Yeah, I assume. Well, I expect UTSA to have a very, very strong contingency there, if not the strongest. So.
Yeah. I mean, just the alumni we have living in Houston, and then if you listen to the interviews today that we posted, or just depending on when you're listening to this, if you listen to the interviews recently, Leighton talked about it. A lot of players from Houston, a lot of alumni live in Houston, like baseball alumni live in Houston. So I think, the scheduling kind of is what it is. It's a bummer, but I think we're going to have a good turnout there. And it's a big enough stadium where you can kind of get all the Roadrunner fans to congregate, and get that place really sounding loud, you know?
Yeah. Don't forget, they sell buckets of beer at the stadium.
Buckets.
Yeah.
First bucket on Adrian. That's what I'm hearing.
You can sit there. You sit there right by first base and drink beer on the field. It's an incredible ballpark. Great place to watch baseball.
I was talking to my friend just last night. I was telling him like the conference tournament's coming up or whatever, and he was like, "Does Rice always host the conference tournament?" And I was like, "No, but maybe they should.
They should.
I'd be down with that. Great ballpark, great location. You can fly easily from any school in the conference."
That's right.
So, Mike Oresco, if you're listening to this is my official pitch for Rice to host next year.
That's right.
So Dan, you've been pumping out content at a maniacal pace as always, and with the season starting to get towards the conclusion, I hope you'll get a chance to rest and relax a little bit, but why don't you kind of recap all the content that you posted recently and what the subscribers can expect throughout the conference tournament?
So we had our I did the recap log, which talked about the ACU game and the La Tech games. We had a Where Are They Now with, I mentioned it, Jonathan Tapia, Chase King, turning out to be friends of the pod now, multiple guest appearances, and John Ryan Flores. And just, I think what resonated me the most with that episode, because I know it's a Patreon exclusive, was I asked the guys, and I didn't know how willing they'd be to talk about it, but we mentioned a few times like not getting in and not getting selected, and it's kind of an awkward thing to talk about, and it got a little more intimate, the conversation. I said, and I basically just said, like, what was the first thing that Coach Hallmark said to you guys after selection Monday when you didn't get a spot? And I mean, if anything, like, paid the $5 for the month to listen to that episode to hear how he handled that and how much that moment felt to those guys not getting in, and just as baseball players, as competitors, as athletes. Just really, I could tell how much it meant to them. What he said, but anyway, so a really good episode, and that was probably the cherry on top, was hearing them just be vulnerable in that moment. But
there was so much emotion through the whole episode, like both like light and heavy. Man, it was like a great roller coaster.
You can hear it.
I think might be your best episode yet as a podcaster.
throughout that episode, it's there. Right. It's heavy. Listen,
I laughed a lot.
All of them.
Well, we had a good time. Sorry, Adrian, to cut you off, but we had a good time before and after, just getting ready and debriefing. And I mean, just of that three, Chase kind of takes the bullets for getting getting razzed on the most. And then there were a few times where they're like, this story, I don't know if we can tell this on the podcast. A lot of good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, Adrian and I have been doing this for years, and I can tell you, like, the funniest stuff happens in like the 2 minutes after you stop recording, because it's someone to tell you the truth of what they actually wanted to say, but didn't want to say it recorded on the podcast.
Right. Right. Yeah. There's a lot of tongue biting that goes on, man. But tip of the hat to you, Dan. Just unbelievable. The most excellent baseball coverage that this podcast platform could have ever dreamed of, imagined of. Really pursued it as a full-time hustle, from the Twitter to the blog post to the episodes. We have friends of the podcast that are baseball alumni now. Just an unbelievable guest rotation, unbelievable just conducting of baseball coverage on this platform. A salute, round of applause, bravo. Just incredible stuff, man. Incredible stuff. An absolute pro. Dan Erdahl, Alamo Audible baseball beat.
Yeah, no, I mean, thank you. And you know, it's funny because it's no, I remember like I asked you guys whenever we met, I think it was in the fall, and I just basically wanted to kind of see what I would maybe be getting myself into. And one of the things I asked was like, how much time do you guys put in every week? And you were very transparent about like, there's no way to measure it because of everything we're doing. And we've seen how you guys have grown, you know, this brand, and just now covering so many more sports than just football, and bringing the guest on and giving people like myself the opportunity to just have a part in it. And I mean, so much work goes into what you guys do. Even like as much as I'm doing, you guys are doing as much helping me get the stuff out, whether it's editing videos, editing articles. So thank you so much for that. I think what makes it all worth it is hearing the baseball alumni, hearing the current players say like, hey, there's not anything like this out here. Like, we appreciate what you're doing. You know, there's other outlets that are doing it, you know, for different reasons. Maybe they don't have as much opportunity to do it how they would maybe want to, but I think we've got something special going on here with how we present the information and how we present the content. And with that being said, I'll get back to Jared's second question with what people can expect this week. So after each UTSA game, I'll do a quick kind of down and dirty, raw thoughts, raw emotion of the UTSA game, win or lose, kind of how the game went, what looked good, you know, just real quick, maybe who the next game would be, assuming there would be a next game. And then I'll still be doing the live tweets for the UTSA games. I've got the plans. I've got the logistics worked out to be in Houston all week as long as UTSA is there. And then as far as the non-UTSA games, I'll probably do like every 3-inning Twitter update. So I'll just say Charlotte 5, La Tech 8 after 3 innings, you know, after 6 and so forth. To keep people in the loop. And if we're still talking about UTSA baseball on Sunday, maybe we'll do a down and dirty championship podcast. You know, we'll see. So
nice. Very, very nice. Good stuff. And all week long, folks, if you go to the store page, you want to get some baseball gear, our Los Correcaminos collection is all baseball centric, and it's 15% off. You got to use the code CUSARUN, CUSARUN, 15% off all of our baseball gear at the Alamo Audible store. So yes, represent. You can't buy the dang UTSA baseball hat at the UTSA bookstore, but you can get yourself a Los Correcaminos hat from the Alamo Audible store. Yes.
Maybe Adrian's not buying you a bucket of beer, but he will give you a discount on our merch. So it's not nothing.
Yeah. And Ray, if you want to go back and second plug for the same episode, if you want to go back and listen to the Runners Rising episode, Ray and I worked out a little code word that if you go up to him during the tournament and tell him that code word or that statement, he'll give you a free item from Meet Me Apparel, friends of the pod.
Nice.
Patreon plug, Patreon donors. Let me just say 2 things real quick, and then Jared, I'll let you finish up with all the stuff you want to say. We've heard all season from Coach Hallmark for the players. I've heard from the players' parents, you know, control what you can control. And that's kind of been one of the team's mottos this year. You know, Coach Hallmark mentioned it several times today. So I kind of listed out a couple things, what you can control, what you can't control. Who you play, you can't control that. How do you play? You can control that. Weather delays, you can't control that. One game at a time, you can control that. Who you beat, you can control that. Who you play next, you can't control that. The last nugget I want to leave, we know that, and Steven Whitaker, love the guy. He got his preview recap out a little sooner than this episode. He beat me to part of this nugget.
Oh, Dan had those weeks ago. He texted me.
I know.
I was like, save it.
I know. So we know that the last time UTSA won a conference championship was 2013, 10 years ago, against DBU in the WAC, our only year in the WAC, and this is our final year in Conference USA. We started the athletic season with the conference championship. Maybe we can finish it, but beat DBU. I think we won like 11-5. That was the last time that DBU did not make the regional tournaments, the field of 64.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Now, obviously DBU is going to make it, but 10 years ago, our last conference championship, I think we've won at least one conference tournament in every conference we've been in as a baseball program. So it'd be nice to be able to say that about Conference USA, but that's a little, I don't know. I'm probably more like giddy about it than other people. Other people are like, okay, cool, whatever. Like, I've been, like when I figured that out,
I love that stat. I thought it was so cool.
Yeah,
I was like,
awesome.
Get this. Like the last time they made it, because I've been saying that all season. I was like 8th straight, and I didn't put 2 and 2 together. And I was like, oh my gosh, like the last time we won was against DBU, and that was the last time they didn't make regionals. Like crazy. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
No, knowing Steven though, it makes sense that Steven got a scoop on you on this one, because like that's his whole MO is like these obscure historical stats.
Right.
And
listen, I think there's a mole. I think someone, I don't know. I think someone leaked it to him.
Nah, Steven's just that good. I'll screenshot the text that you sent me like a week ago or whatever for proof. But Steven could have known a month ago. Just don't tell him what that guy.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. But that's all I've got though.
Yeah. So just a few parting words for me, and I just want to say thanks to everyone for like supporting. Obviously us in the greater Alamo Audible universe, but specifically Dan around the bird bath, man. Like I knew that people wanted baseball coverage because they told me all the time. But it wasn't until I started seeing the download numbers for this podcast, I was like, oh damn, like this has legs. Like, Dan, I'm gonna need you for the next 5 months. Like, just drop everything. We're going all in. But it was nice to see some new Patreon subscribers, I think specifically for baseball coverage this week. So shout out to Jorge Garza and Erica Fernandez for joining us at the insider tier. And they'll have they got the Where Are They Now episode that was fantastic, and I think Dan's finest work yet, which is saying a lot. And they'll also get access to the daily recaps. Well, not daily, but post UTSA game recaps that Dan's going to do, as well as all of our future content, past content, all that good stuff. So if you haven't signed up to Patreon already, definitely go check it out. It's all over our website and all that good stuff. And thank you as always to our big money donors, Ben Tobar, Rick Cortez of Ready Road Grillers, the Bunch family, Zach Espericueta on the San Antonio Podcast Network, the Fikes family, and our board of trustees members, including Digiteek, John Alwell, Lena Perez of Los Dos Rowdies Tailgating, Gary and Ruben representing the UTSA Bird Gang Tailgate, Ray Redding, Mimi Paparel, who will definitely see the Conference USA Tournament Houston this week, Brandon Grill and the Grill Realty Group, and Andy Elizada of Proficient Benefit Solutions. So that's my spiel. Thank you, guys. I'm about to go on a hiatus. My wife and I are going on our honeymoon to Greece, so I'm going to be MIA. I'll see if I can record something to release while I'm on the beach in Santorini or whatever. But
let's go.
If you don't hear from me in a while, don't come looking for me. I'm chilling. I need this break, man. I think I earned this one. So thank you guys all so much.
And that's what's funny. I mean, I know you and Adrian, like I have you guys help out from time to time with episodes, but wouldn't it be somewhat fitting if UTSA just went on a complete tear and made like a super regional, and you're like, holy Toledo, I'm in Greece, and the program is like in a super regional.
Adrian, you're gonna have to brush up on your podcast editing skills, brother. Stay ready.
I'll be on it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys for listening so much, and big week this week, man. Go Runners, man. We're pumped.
Let's go.
Yeah, birds up. Let's go.